Welcome back, Pack, and welcome into another.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, we're here for another football video, another fantasy football mock draft. I'm taking pick 5 this time because I am my 5th pick in my draft. So, thumbs up. I got Pibbb alongside me once again. Let's get into it.
Me and Trevor were just briefly talking about how pick 5 is rough. I also don't like where I'm at. 8 is also not very fun either because there's some rough decisions there as well. But we're going to start this draft off. Let's get into it. Derrick Henry. Whoa, okay. All right. Hold on. Pause the damn draft. What is going on here? Oh my God. Should I fix these and we should restart this? Because what the hell is that?
What the hell is even that? I'm going to leave it up to you. This is your draft. But if this ever happens, I'm taking Jonathan Taylor 100%. Like, there's no reason I would never.
Jonathan Taylor at the 1-5 is pretty decent here.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to change some players up. I'm going to put Jonathan Taylor there.
Holy hell.
I'm going to put Derrick Henry at 3. We'll put Christian McCaffrey at 2. We'll go in a normal order here. I feel like Eckler's fine there. Maybe I should put Justin Jefferson, but
yeah.
Wow, what a start. We'll come back with you on the pick. Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Najee Harris, after what was probably the worst start to 4 picks I've ever seen in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely awful. I would love to take Jonathan Taylor at 1-5. If that happens in my league, I'm sold immediately. But based off of some developments since our last video together, here's what's going to happen for me. They have named starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, and it's not good. It's Mitch Trubisky that's going to be up there. So from that, I know Mitch Trubisky's not a great quarterback. I know they're going to want to establish the run. So I'm going to take Najee Harris at pick 5.
Oh, okay. And this is beautiful back to me, which is unfortunate because I wanted to make a different decision here on a pick that I haven't taken yet. I've already done a video on these 3 players. So now I have to decide if I should change Jamar Chase to my pick and make it to where I can at least have it not the same thumbnail. Now I'm at that. This whole draft is, you know what? Okay, we're changing this to Justin Jefferson, and I'm gonna take Jamar Chase here for the sake of continuity, because boy oh boy has this draft been anything but continuity. If you're here for any helpful tips, it might come later because I am
not in round
just in shambles right now of what's been happening. Like Joe Mixon went in the 1-6 before Dalvin Cook, before any of the receivers. Oh my God. Okay, let's take a breather here. I know I'm going Jamar Chase, so we'll take that. That's gonna be easy pick. Of course, at that pick, there's still insane value. I mean, there's still Cooper Kupp, Dalvin Cook there. Realistically, if I didn't want to go for continuity, I would have taken Dalvin Cook there probably 100% of the time, just because he's like a top 5 running back, and it's really hard to find those. And there's so much receiver depth in the league that I think you can find a 1,000-yard to 100 target or 100 reception receiver in like round 6. So I think that's fine. Now I have a decision if I want to go Travis Kelsey, now that he made it back to me at pick 8. And this is a rough spot. I was just talking previous about this because if I go 0 running back, maybe in the 3rd round I get a starting running back who's like, I don't know, James Conner is my running back 1, which he's not very like efficient, but he gets some touchdowns. So I don't know if I'm exactly happy with that, but I'm just not a Travis Kelsey truther. I think he's just, he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers at tight end, which is great.
Right.
But I could just get a wide receiver 1 instead and have a tight end that's like decent later in the draft. So I'm going to pass on Kelsey here. But it's between DeAndre Swift and Kamara for me if I had to choose, looking at the running backs. I've already talked about how out I am on Nick Chubb. He's great in the NFL. Like, he is an insane running back. But as far as fantasy goes, he doesn't catch the ball. And in PPR, that is something you desperately need. And that offense is going to be a lot worse. So, they're going to... Jacoby Brissett, they're just going to stack the box against Nick Chubb. And if he's not catching passes, it's going to be pretty difficult for him to continue to be a monster. But he's still going to be great, of course. But I'd rather have some pass-catching upside in DeAndre Swift or Alvin Kamara or a receiver. But I don't really like the options. Like, CeeDee Lamb is great, but, I don't want to really take him at this position. I don't want Tyreek here. Tebow Samuel's in consideration, but I'm going to go with wide receiver running back instead. And it's DeAndre Swift or Alvin Kamara. I'm going to go with Kamara. I like Kamara's upside a little bit more. And, it's like Swift is great too, but I just feel I just like Kamara's a top 5 running back in the league for me as far as fantasy football goes. When he's fully in and in the workflow, I guess, because he's going to get the ball a lot. He's going to, I mean, he's had almost 4 seasons, obviously with Drew Brees, with 100 targets, but Jameis Winston loves to throw the ball. So Alvin Kamara already in the preseason had 3 targets as well, or had a single target. So he's already like, I think him and Jameis Winston will be fine, and he's efficient enough, and he's like the only player in the backfield. Mark Ingram's probably going to come in and steal a few, and by a few touchdowns, probably like 7 this season, where he's just going to come in at like the 1 yard line. But I love Alvin Kamara there.
Yeah. So now that it falls to me, just talk about Travis Kelsey.
Kelsey's still up.
Still up there. Like you just said, he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers. I don't have a wide receiver yet, so Kelsey would be a great pick here for me. And that would just lock down a ton of points. On the other side of it, you look at, a couple top wide receivers that are available: CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans. All of them are going to put up some numbers, especially Mike Evans, being in that Tampa offense. Yeah. But also, even with the questionable mark for Deebo Samuel, they just said Jimmy G's coming back to the Niners, and that's already established rapport between him and Deebo. Like, this is a combination, I think, that already exists. It's going to allow Deebo Samuel to continue the success that he's already had, even with a potential knee injury. That's just an asterisk you have to put on it now. Like, okay, well, how healthy is that knee really going to be over the season? I mean, he put up great numbers last year. Yeah. I'm not going to take anything away from it. So now it's just up to, okay, who's my wide receiver 1 going to be? Travis Kelsey or Deebo Samuel?
Right.
Even lurking right behind that, you got Keenan Allen, who we saw the Chargers, even though their team was not phenomenal, put up some pretty decent digits last year. I mean,
he had 157 targets last year.
Justin Herbert did some work for that offense, even though that team itself was not that great. So I'm taking someone that's going to catch the ball, and I think I'm going to go with probably Keenan Allen, just because of the fact that there's not a lot of upside to that offense. I think Keenan Allen's going to be the guy again, so I'm going to take the free points.
That's a surprise. I 100% thought you were going Travis Kelsey here. By the way, in my previous draft videos, this is one of the Chiefs fans I was talking about, and that you have to keep an eye out for on your who else is in your draft and where they might reach. And that's Kelsey at the 2.6 is crazy for value, but it's so hard. I'm just so hard for me to take a tight end in the first 2 rounds. Like in the 3rd, maybe definitely in the 4th, I'm totally okay with Mark Andrews. I really love Mark Andrews as far as him being like basically the only receiver in that offense with Rashad Bateman. Meanwhile, Travis Kelsey, I mean, Juju, MVS, Sky Moore, like there's some good options there in Kansas City, but Baltimore does not have that. So I love the outside of Mark Andrews a bit more, even though obviously Travis Kelsey will get 100 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Like it's just, that's his floor. Like he's going to have that this season just because Patrick Mahomes is great and he is great. But yeah, something I was not expecting was you to go Keenan Allen there. Of course, Deebo Samuel and CeeDee Lamb both on the board. Going for the safety pick. I'm interested to see what your 3rd pick is now.
And you give credit to Mark Andrews and what he's done, and here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pass him up. Again, I do not want this tight end. This is not a tight end I'm going to draft, and I'll tell you exactly why. Last season, when Mark Andrews was on the field without Lamar Jackson, he played like 10% more snaps. He got like 3 to 4 more targets a game without Lamar Jackson, and he was that individual workhorse for the Baltimore offense. So with Lamar Jackson back in the mix, that's going to actually put a chip in to Mark Andrews' productivity, which is wild to think about, but that's just not something that I'm going to go for. There are so many tight ends here available. Mark Andrews is not going to be a person I'm going to take to put into that one, especially with a lot of the offseason moves. I'm not going to go for that tight end once more. So 2 rounds in a row, I'm going to pass up a tight end. I'm going to go for another wide receiver, and I'm taking wide receiver 1 out of Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, no question about it.
No, I wanted Mark Andrews so bad, dude. I would have definitely taken him here at the 3.8. I was talking last video about him and Marquise Brown had the highest shared percentage of targets in the NFL last season with that Baltimore offense, no matter who's at quarterback. And that's why I just wanted a piece of that, because losing Marquise Brown and Rashad Bateman filling in that, like Mark Andrews is going to get even more of that. And I think Mark Andrews could finish as the tight end 1. So that's why I think targeting him in the end of the 3rd round is very good value. I have Javonte Williams here staring at me in the face. As a Broncos fan, it's tough to overlook that one. I did take Kyle Pitts in a draft yesterday as well. That was the first time I think I've ever mocked getting Kyle Pitts because, like you said, it's rough to get a tight end early because there's just so many good positional players in which tight end is just one position that you can kind of fly every now and then. Right. Meanwhile, you have 2 receivers starting, 2 running backs starting. Like, you need good depth in those spots. So it is always a difficult decision. But Mark Andrews is one of those tight ends, if not the only tight end I would really consider at this spot. And I'm really sad Team 6 took him instead of one of the good receivers still up like A.J. Brown. But, I mean, Zeke is still here, but there's been some weird talk lately, and by weird, it's like good. Jerry Jones has been saying once again that they want to run the offense through Ezekiel Elliott, but he did not look very good last year. And it's Jerry Jones who's not the coach speaking about this. It's just Jerry Jones has always had a huge presence in the Cowboys team. We know that as a GM, he is the Cowboys. That's kind of how he's developed himself as an owner. And Zeke, they lost their starting left tackle. Already talked about that. The best tackle probably in football, if not close to it. It's a huge hit to their offensive line because, that basically takes out the entire left side. Like, you're not running on the left side anymore because you're going to have a rookie or you're going to have a backup playing. So you just are going to avoid that. And it's going to chip off Zeke's running efficiency potentially. So looking at the receivers, I can still wait a little bit. There's some guys I like in the later rounds. So it's definitely a running back here for me. I'm never going Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Mentioned this in my last video. I think Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Kyler, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, all of those guys can finish just as high as Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. There's no reason in my head that you need to put any emphasis on those guys and waste a third or second round pick. It just seems dumb in my head to do that. So I'm going to go with Javonte. I'm going to go with the upside with the Denver offense and him being the starter in the timeshare, of course. But Javonte had the most broken tackles in the NFL last year, and it was just looked very good when he was on the field. And I really wish Michael Pittman made it back. Yeah. And now Kyle Pitts is here. And I have another question to ask myself. If I take Kyle Pitts again, probably not is the answer. I obviously am not taking T. Higgins. We saw that in the video yesterday. Teammate went crazy, got 5 receivers, 2 of them being Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm not going to do that this time. I got a little bit more of a brain for myself. But at the end of the third round, James Conner and Zeke go, and then Patrick Mahomes and Pittman. I probably would have taken a third running back here, honestly, if James Conner or Ezekiel Elliott made it to me, because I still like those guys' upsides, and as a third running back, I can always just bench them or move them around. But Pittman going is sad. That was kind of my next pick, and I really don't like reaching on a lot of these other players. I hate the running backs all the way in this vicinity. Basically, Gibson is a little bit better now with apparently Brian Robinson, who
still on the roster,
had that awful injury and got shot a couple of times. It could be ready for week 2. That's wild. Just insane to me. That dude is a monster. Healthy, praying for a healthy recovery and a speedy recovery for him is what I'm trying to say there. But of course, that means Antonio Gibson, basically that workhorse running back now back in Washington, even though he was not great in preseason and is still fumbling all over the place. Yeah. But this is a weird pick for me because I don't really like the running backs. I'm never going Cam Akers because I want Darnell Anderson, as the fantasy footballers call him, or Darrell Henderson, later in the draft because they're probably going to be in a split anyways, and one of them's going in the 4th, the other one's going in the 8th. I'd rather take the 8th guy in the split who's still going to be on the same offense. But and the receivers, it's tough because Deontay Johnson, like you said, it's Mitchell Trubisky. Deontay Johnson was great last season just because he had a floor of Roethlisberger couldn't throw more than 10 yards. So Roethlisberger would just constantly throw to Deontay Johnson for 8 yards at a time. And that would be their whole play and strategy. But I just don't know about Mitchell Trubisky. Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, is fantastic. We know that. But I don't know. It's tough, obviously, with Carson Wentz. How much can you really believe in him? But even then, Terry has still had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with some really bad quarterbacks. So that shows how skillful he is at that position. This is a really tough spot. This is probably one of the hardest picks I've had to deal with because Kyle Pitts I can easily go and take here and be kind of okay with that. And I think that's what I'm going to do again. I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts. I'm going to go with an early tight end once again. I just didn't really like the picks around me. And I'm expecting to get another receiver on the way back in the 5th round, which I still love a lot of options there. So I like Kyle Pitts instead.
Yeah. And I'm not going to take anything away from those 2 tight ends that are picked right there. I would put either one of them over Mark Andrews just because, drafting Mark Andrews is one of those risk versus reward types, with is Lamar going to be healthy all year? And if he's not, what is that going to do to the productivity of Mark Andrews? But I think Pitts and Kittle, both great tight end choices, especially, again, as we said with Jimmy G, staying there in San Francisco. That's going to bring that established rapport already back with him and Kittle. And that's just a phenomenal pick there for a 4th rounder if you're going to get tight ends early on. This has put me in an awful situation.
I did not like the picks here in this round.
I hate my choices at running back. I don't like anything for the next 10 or 15. And I'm not gonna pick anything because I feel like whatever's
I'm
gonna
rising
come back
on Travis
around.
Etienne. I'll say that right now, but it's still a really awkward pick because it's a 4th round running back who, in this dead zone of fantasy football, means every running back from the 4th to 7th round has a huge unsuccess rate or a failed chance. They could just be terrible, and that's why it's the dead zone. Is all of these guys are normally running back ones that just don't perform up to their ADP. Travis Etienne could be in that same position where he's splitting the backfield with James Robinson the whole season, and he might not have a big as a passing role as we might think, but it is, Trevor Lawrence's teammate in college. Obviously, he missed out in the first season. He's fully back and healthy this season, so that's why I am starting to personally believe in Etienne. I got him in a draft already, but it's I agree with you. The running backs, even including Etienne, it's still I'm not a fan of all the way down to AJ Dillon. It's pretty rough.
Even with Cam Akers coming back off of his short little injury stint there, back on the field, great for him. I'm gonna go with another wide receiver. I have to. I can't just leave anything on the table for these because this is on the average ADP, all the next one's up. So the AI is gonna go ahead and snag some of these if the AI makes any sense again.
Right. Yeah. Because Team 1 and Team 3 have 3 running backs, so they're gonna take a receiver that without a doubt, or they're gonna go randomly in a quarterback or tight end. But it's a good point here to say that.
And with Justin Herbert, I imagine one of those two is probably going to go into that versus Team 4, who's got a running back, wide receiver, and a tight end all. So Team 4 is a wild card right now, but I have a pretty solid idea what Team 1, Team 3 are going to be aiming at. So what I'm going to be aiming is another wide receiver up on the top. We've already talked about Score and McLaurin. T. Higgins, even at wide receiver 2, that Cincinnati offense has been really, really good. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill now complementing that Miami offense. Miami's a 10-7, 9-8 team. They're not awful, they're not great, but they're still going to be able to produce something. I don't want to sign DJ Moore to my team because they just signed Chenault from Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's terrible though.
He's terrible, but now there's these
That's
question marks
true.
in
There is a lot
Carolina.
of receivers. Yeah.
And Baker Mayfield's quarterback won week 1, so it's
Listen, it's not Sam Darnold. You can't get worse. Come on. It was Sam Darnold who, at the beginning of last season, the first 3 weeks, was playing like Cam Newton in his MVP season. Sam Darnold was everyone was oh my God, Sam Darnold's hit a new leaf. And the next 14 games is oh, he sucks again. Okay, never mind. But Terry pick there in the 4th round, I love. That's a great pick.
Yeah, even with, someone's got to catch the ball, right? Someone has to.
Yeah, exactly. And Carson Wentz is average, but he's a decent average. And for Terry McLaurin, that's better quarterback play than he's had in the last couple of years. So Carson Wentz will still manage to hit Terry
I will never flame Fitzmagic ever.
Me neither.
Fitzmagic, phenomenal quarterback.
The GOAT.
But as the draft continued, Herbert went as expected out of this one. Etienne, Team 1 and Team 3 both drafted another running back. So they have 4 each.
I guess we're clueless, I guess.
Yeah, we thought they were going to go. At least Team 1 got a wide receiver out of it, but 4 running backs to a wide receiver, I'm just going to say don't do that in your draft. That's a terrible idea. You're not going to get any value out of it, especially in a PPR league. This is awful what Team 1 has done. Team 3's just as bad, if not worse. Justin Herbert's going to get you points. But
if I had those 3 running backs, if I was Team 1 or Team 3, you're set forever. Just stop taking running backs for literally the rest of the draft because
you're done.
You can flex Fournette and Jones as your 3rd spot for the rest of the year. Yeah. You do not need any more. So, highly don't recommend if you're going to go 3 running backs to start your first 3 rounds, which could be a strategy. Obviously, a lot of people like hero running backs, which is just taking 2 out of the 3 and then waiting a long time to get your 3rd. But that's a strategy, not a good one, I'd say in this instance, though, with no receivers for Team 3 and Deontay Johnson is your wide receiver 1 for Team 1. Those are not great drafts here, in my opinion.
This is actually perfect for where this is falling because I had a talking point where Baltimore's backfield is now even muddier.
Oh, man.
Because they just are. There's rumor talk now Kenyon Drake's going to Baltimore. So
I think they signed him already.
Did they already?
They did pick him up. Yeah,
okay, well,
he did. They did pick him up.
As of last time that I looked, it was like probably going to happen. Now, if it actually has happened,
he's on the roster here on Sleepers. So yes, he is there.
I'm not touching J.K. Dobbins.
Agreed, 100%.
There is too much going on in that backfield. It's the Raiders all over again. They have too many running backs. They don't know who's going to be running back one. So I'm going to skip down a couple. CEH, don't get me wrong, good player. LSU did good things. Kansas City's offense, potent. They're always going to put up points. But I don't know if they're going to do it out of the backfield. And if someone's catching the ball, it's not going to be him. So I'm going to drop down one more time to A.J. Dillon.
Oof, going deep there, taking a AJ Dillon pick in the 5th round, which I don't doubt. Like we've already talked about that. That's a good point. Is you need a second running back. AJ Dillon, I talked about in my last video. He's going to be on the field just as much as Aaron Jones. It doesn't matter if one of them's running the ball; the other one's going to be running routes. Like they are both going to be on the field a lot this season. Yep. So AJ Dillon as your running back too, and like you said, I'm totally out on J.K. Dobbins. I'm completely out on Elijah Mitchell as well. I just don't believe in. The same thing could be said how you feel about the Ravens is for the 49ers backfield is they're going to have 5 running backs that are all going to touch the ball and they're all going to be fine. And so I'm just completely out on that too. And Clyde, like you said, he is technically the starter, but he hasn't really carved out a role in the 2 seasons that he's been there where he was a first-round draft pick. Like, he was supposed to have a lot of capital and be insane. Like, probably like a Kareem Hunt role is what we expected of the Chiefs back in the day. And he just did not. They just didn't use him like that. And he's been hurt a little bit, of course, too. So, yeah, I like A.J. Dillon there. Obviously, the running backs we already talked about. It gets into a murky field later. Yeah. So, it gets a tough decision. But after A.J. Dillon is Jalen Waddle and Kyler Murray in the 5th round, which I could have been eyeing here. Darren Waller talked about it yesterday, talking about it more today. Now is discussing a contract extension. So I think a little bit of him not playing has been contract stuff. It kind of been a holdout, but no one really knew if he was healthy or not. He's still going to be probably the number 2 weapon there in Las Vegas. And I think people are not realizing how much Davante Adams is going to take away from the offense. Like, Darren Waller was a top tight end because he was the only option on that team. Now they have one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the NFL, on that team, who played in college with Derek Carr. Like, Darren Waller is going to get overlooked a lot for a similar size to Davante Adams in the end zone, especially. Well, not similar size. Darren Waller's 6'6". He's huge. But I will easily take DJ Moore here. I know you were out on him, but I am fine with Baker Mayfield. I think he's just great, and I was really hoping Lamar Jackson made it back, and I'm not even going to have to think about that one. I will take Lamar in the 6th every single time.
Yeah, don't blame me for that. And, I got nothing against Baker. Baker, I supported him in Cleveland. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's better than what his statistics would show, similar to, or like the results would show on the scoreboard at least, similar to Matt Stafford in Detroit. Matt Stafford was a great quarterback in Detroit, but you know what? He was on a terrible team. And Cleveland was not a great team, but Baker Mayfield led them to the playoffs and got their first playoff victory.
Right, exactly.
Who knows how long? Like, Baker's not a bad quarterback. So, similar with this concept of, someone's got to catch the ball in Washington, someone's got to catch the ball in Carolina. And Moore's a good one to pick out of there. Yep. ADP suggesting me for Mike Williams. I already got Keenan Allen, so I don't think I'm going to match up on the other side of the field with that. I got 2 running backs. I now looking probably for another flex because I'm not going to go for any of these tight ends. I think that there's more that could be taken later on. I'm not going to go with a quarterback right now because, like you said a couple rounds ago, there's plenty of quarterback value in this one. Plus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks already taken off. So we're in the latter half of everyone taking QBs. Not concerned about it. There's still a lot of green on this side. So now anytime I'm up to draft and I see this much green for running backs going the other way.
Which we said the first time around. Yeah. We'll see this time.
Yeah, it just tells me that everyone over there should be theoretically avoiding running backs rather. So I'm going to look for another wide receiver option out of this one. I think that, again, Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 1 out there in Los Angeles. You have to have someone on the other side. Allen Robinson's a phenomenal wide receiver. Such a great pass catcher, was just stuck in a terrible system prior to. So now, going on with the Super Bowl championship winning team, 100%. I'll take Allen Robinson out of this one.
Yeah, it's a great pick. Knowing the kind of receivers around him, Mike Williams, you already have Keenan Allen, so it's out of the books. Brandon Cooks would have kind of been my other option there. But now we see a couple of tight ends and QB go. I was expecting as well was tight end or quarterback for a couple of those teams.
Yep.
And obviously Lamar wouldn't have made it back to me. I was also thinking Jalen Hurts wouldn't have made it back to me, and those are kind of like my two top picks. That's why Lamar for me in the last round was a no-brainer, because it was a long pick before me, and 3 teams in front of me did have quarterbacks, but Jalen Hurts, with the way the team 1 and 3 have been drafting, I wouldn't have expected them to. Team 3 already is quarterback, but I would have expected team 4 and team 1 to get a quarterback at some point there. So I wanted to make sure I got one of my guys, Lamar Jackson, because Jalen Hurts will probably go within this pick or the next pick at team 6 with how the lineups have gone. So yeah, I'm okay. For this time, this looks like a very similar draft to my last one. I had DJ Moore, Kyle Pitts, Javonte Williams. I had Kyler Murray instead of Lamar, but change it up just differently. And obviously I'm drafting the guys I like. And I think that's the point of mock drafts entirely, is if you have to reach for it. Like, AJ Dillon usually goes maybe in the 6th, 7th. Well, more so the 6th lately, but with how the running back situation was going and seeing how many running backs have gone off the board already, AJ Dillon is a great pick there at the 5-5, because the running back pool is diminishing very quickly in this draft.
Yeah, and I hate that so much.
Me too.
But now to a point here, we're looking at the running backs left available. Miles Sanders up here. Philadelphia's offense has just gotten that much better. Talked about it last video with the offensive line that they have. What's going on in that backfield. And even with the questionable mark on his tag, still not practicing.
That's not good to see. I didn't see that yesterday.
Yeah, not great. But Damien Harris, he's going to be the, first down runner. He's going to be a goal line runner. So he's going to score a few touchdowns. He's not going to have a huge workload. He's not going to be catching the ball out of the backfield. That'll be more so for Ramondre Stevenson. Kareem Hunt in Cleveland's offense, I'm probably just going to avoid Cleveland altogether as much as I can. Cordero Patterson, not bad. Not a bad pickup at this point. You see me just skip right over Clyde Edwards-Helaire again. I'm not going there. Tony Pollard, you talk about reaching a little bit as well. Tony Pollard, it's just going to be a weird relationship, a weird dynamic in the backfield of Dallas, where he's going to see a decent amount of field time. But I've already gone over the guy where I'm going to go. And for this one, it's going to have to be, even with the questionable, I'm going to take Miles Sanders out of this, just because, that backfield is going to be something with one of the best offenses here.
My choice as well. I would have taken Miles Sanders at this pick here if he made it back to me, especially as my running back 3, where I don't have to start him if he is questionable. Philadelphia loves their 3 running backs in obviously Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. They love those guys. They love every single one of them. But Miles Sanders, when he's given the opportunity, he is incredibly good. And I still always have wondered why the Eagles haven't used him like the weapon that he is, because he's always been a very efficient runner. So I expect him to have a decent role still this year. And like I said, Jalen Hurts did go at team 6. That was the one team that was going to take a quarterback for me. So that I'm happy with locking in Lamar here. Now I have some great receivers back to me, and in front of me, there's on the other side of the draft where there's a lot of running backs at 1-2, a lot of receivers at 9-10. So I could expect a couple of these receivers to drop. Team 9 might take another one before another running back, but like you said, the running back room is diminishing. So this might be a situation where I'd have to take Damien Harris here if that's someone who I wanted. But I have an eye on someone I want in the next round, so I think I'm going to go for a receiver here. Listen, Michael Thomas is a very intriguing option.
Yeah.
He, of course, had insane target numbers with Drew Brees, and we have basically no idea how he's going to work with Jameis Winston, since he's been out of practice a little bit and still recovering from an injury. So it's been kind of awkward there. And I do have Alvin Kamara. So do I want to double stack a Saints offense that might not be good with Jameis Winston? Who knows?
Yeah.
And I could go for safety, and I'm going to go for safety. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm going to take that. Still some receivers go, so a lot of receivers still going at the end of that one. So a smart choice there, in my opinion. Russell Wilson following in the mix of the receivers as we go to the 8th round. Now I have 3 receivers, quarterback, tight end, 2 running backs. My team is looking at pretty safe overall. Now there's a couple of guys I'm looking at. Adam Thielen is a great just backup receiver option for the Minnesota offense. He did great last season. He's been a touchdown monster, even if he's been a little bit less productive, obviously with Justin Jefferson's resurgence. I'm a big fan of taking DeAndre Hopkins, just because I know after that 6-week stint is over, he will be, that top option on the Cardinals offense again. And with the opportunity that he could have, it's not a bad pick here, but running backs are going to thin out really heavily. That's what scares me with how many have gone in this draft, and I feel like this draft has just destroyed running back. I feel like there's been a lot more running backs this draft than previous drafts. So
a lot of green.
Now I have to make that decision if I want to go with Damien Harris here or reach up a little bit for Chase Edmonds, who's my guy that I'm thinking about taking here in this situation.
If you don't, I'm going to.
Yeah, I know that because I just don't really like the options. Devin Singletary is going to be splitting time potentially with James Cook. Kenneth Walker is going to be splitting time with Rashad Penny. Tony Pollard is the backup option in Cowboys offense. Cordell Patterson's on the Falcons. That's it. And Kareem Hunt's on the Browns. So, that's kind of your TLDR for those two. Is I'm just kind of out on bad offenses for secondary running backs. Cordell Patterson could still be the starter, but Tyler Allgeier's been picking up some volume as far as end zone looks and stuff, so I have no idea. Damien Harris is cool and all, and I'd be happy with him, but I also really like Ramondre Stevenson at the end of the draft for PPR especially. If he's going to play a James White role, that's someone I'm going to be targeting. And I'm going to take Chase Edmonds here. I know I'm going to need to lock down the third running back, and reaching about one round to get the guy that you desperately need because running backs are drawing very heavily and are running very thin here. I can get plenty of good receivers later in the draft. That's not a worry for me.
And that's a good point to bring in. If you are in a situation where you look at a draft and analyze the draft and see what's on the board, like we talked about, there's so much green up here that's so focused. Like there's so many running backs just completely gone. Chase Edmonds is a great pickup, even if it is a little bit of a reach. They just cut Sony Michel, so like they don't have that frontliner type of running back. I mean, yeah, sure, that's still a deep running back room where you have Raheem Mostert and Myles Gaskin, both they're still on the roster. But Mostert has been subject to injury. I would know because I drafted him a couple times and he did great until he tore one thing and then he's done for the rest of the year. So there's an injury question mark with Mostert in the backfield there as well. And Myles Gaskin, hasn't really done a lot. So I think Chase Edmonds, great pickup. Like I said, if you didn't, I was probably going to. But now because there's so many running backs, again, going the same way the draft, I'm not really looking at a running back. I mean, if it was going to be Edmonds. So now I'm going to flip back over to a wide receiver. And I'm torn between a 1-2 right here. And it's going to be the person with the suspension for the first few games. And I'm okay with that because DeAndre Hopkins is like a guaranteed 15 points a game every time he plays. And that's huge. But then there's also the developmental role that Gabriel Davis has taken in Buffalo. And
he's risen insane. Yeah, since the hype of the preseason,
he keeps going up further and further. I mean, I've already got a decent amount of good points producers, but I don't have a guy that I know is going to be a home run hitter every time because Tom Brady likes to spread the ball around. I can't rely on the Chargers being great every week. Scorer McLaurin's got average quarterback Robinson. I don't know if he's actually going to take that workload out of Cooper Kupp's hands. So I'm going to go with someone that's suspended. Give me a few weeks. And that's okay. I'll take a few weeks, take a few losses if DeAndre Hopkins comes back and spikes me back up.
Yeah, that's the point of that. Is like you had 4 receivers before that. You're totally fine at receiving. You're going to be fine there no matter what happens. Even if one of your main receivers goes down, you have Allen Robinson that could fill in. So DeAndre Hopkins, and that's the kind of thing you need to look at if there's suspended receivers, or if it's like Michael Thomas in the 7th or 8th round. You're like, can my team afford to sit this guy for a few weeks and not have to have this position? And 8th round is still some value in the draft. So to be putting aside some value later in the season is what you have to decide. So DeAndre Hopkins is a great pick there. What you're talking about already with Gabriel Davis and why he's been rising so much, obviously both Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley gone, 2 of the target heavy pass catchers in the offense, means that Gabriel Davis has to be that secondary option. There's Jamison Crowder's listed as the wide receiver 3, as the slot receiver more than likely. And he's probably not going to get Cole Beasley numbers. So a lot of that action that Sanders and and Beasley got last year are going to be probably developed more into Gabe Davis, which is why in the 8th round, on one of the best offenses that Buffalo has established, Gabriel Davis is a great pick in the 8th. Then goes Cordell Patterson and Dak Prescott going on 9th, Hunter Renfrow, Dallas Goedert, Kareem Hunt, and Devonta Smith. I was going to ask in that last pick, or at this one potentially, if Dallas Goedert was in consideration, or if you're just main tight end at the end.
He was a small consideration there at the point. I'm looking at tight ends, but I've got my eye on one that I think is going to be able to drop. Because it's the same concept. Looking at quarterbacks, everyone's pretty much got one. Tight ends, everyone's pretty much got one. So now I'm basically up to free picks of whoever's left.
That's right.
I'm really not worried about my quarterback or tight end pick at all. That is something I can worry about down the line. I'm really not too thrilled with my backfield that I got so far, or my wide receiver core. I'm just not consistently going to be able to produce a lot of points. And that slightly concerns me. I don't really like how this draft is going. And I don't really like what I have available to me in the running back wide receiver field. Like, there's some people I could reach for. Wide receivers, maybe, but running backs just as well. So I'm gonna take a gamble here early on. I know we talk about the later rounds are for gambling. I'm gonna take an earlier gamble because I just don't know how much value the rest, if I'm in a real league, the rest of anyone else is going to be putting on a player like this. With the announcement coming out that this is a change been made already, it's official for week 1. There's a rookie starting running back out of Houston, and that's Damien Pierce, and he's going on my roster.
Yeah, that was my next pick by far. Damien Pierce is the hype of fantasy football currently. Marlon Mack obviously got cut from the roster. Like, it is Damien Pierce. There is no singular question about it. Damien Pierce is going to be the starting running back for the Houston Texans, and he's going to be a rookie, and he's going to be explosive, and he went in the 7th round in my first league that actually happened. So he is rising. Like, people that know about him will reach for him. Like, instead of Sanders, like, you getting Pierce there is realistic to me as well, because that's how solid of a role Damien Pierce might have in this offense. Even though it is not a great offense, even losing Marlon Mack, like, that's a huge potential kind of timeshare that's maybe cut down completely. Is like, they really believe in Damien Pierce if they're dropping Marlon Mack like that. So yeah, Damien Pierce is the number 1 guy there to target. Chase Edmonds and Damien Pierce are the 2 running backs at the end of drafts I'm targeting every single time if I can get them. But they are both of them now are starting to rise a lot for good reasons, of course, because there's just so much value at the end of your drafts. And I have a very different situation than you. You have 5 wide receivers, 4 running backs. Yeah. I have a very default team here. I got a quarterback, tight end, 3 of each for receivers and running backs. And I, on the contrary, I'm dying personally, I guess. I, on the contrary, actually really like how my drafts developed. But running back is also a situation where Javonte could split time. Chase Edmonds could, split time, but he's more likely going to be there. So running back's a little bit questionable for me, but that Damien Pierce was the only one I was really looking at. Ramondre Stevenson, someone later I could probably take, but there's still not a lot of great picks here. There's been some very interesting developments in this draft. Like Zach Ertz, obviously I have tight end already, but I almost am never going to take Zach Ertz anyways, even though he had a great season last season. I don't know why I'm so out on middle to late round tight ends. Like I would say from TJ Hawkinson all the way through to Zach Ertz, I'm just kind of not happy about taking one of those because I could get some different value elsewhere. Drake London is a good idea for the Falcons. They rookie wide receiver there, but I already have Kyle Pitts, and I'm definitely not double upping with the Falcons offense, so I will pass on him completely. Elijah Moore could be a great prospect, and he is a very good wide receiver. It's just if Zach Wilson can get it done. But Elijah Moore is going to be that wide receiver 1 with Garrett Wilson as kind of a backup as a rookie. So it's a very young team that the Jets have, and Elijah Moore could be a wide receiver 1. But to me, every single time here, I'm going to take a wide receiver, and it's going to be Allen Lazard.
That's exactly what I was looking at.
Green Bay wide receiver 1. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still throwing the ball. Allen Lazard no longer has Davante Adams in front of him. It's just crazy that Allen Lazard is still not rising. Like, I get people don't believe in him, sure, but like, where else is Aaron Rodgers going to throw the ball besides his running backs and Allen Lazard? Nowhere. That is it. Like, they do not have other pass catching options in Green Bay. You're telling me Randall Cobb, who's like 34, okay, he's 32, and Sammy Watkins is going to take some value? I don't think so. I'm cool with Lazard there.
Watkins is going to take a little bit out of a slot position. Robert Tonyan, I think, is also going to be taking a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you that Allen Lazard's wide receiver 1 is going to put up great numbers from an MVP quarterback. Like, that is a fact that's going to happen. I just wouldn't completely take away everything out of the hands of the tight end and wide receiver 3. I think Sammy Watkins is probably going to have a better year than Randall Cobb is.
Yeah, that's fair. It's something that could happen. Team 9, I don't know why is taking a long pick. I don't know if I have to manually draft these now. Suddenly they stop drafting for themselves, and I have to wait for them. I'm just gonna have to individually click, I guess, their picks, and we'll go through that way. So those 4 go through Rashad Penny, James Cook, Zach Ertz, and Drake London. So those are kind of just ADP values. James Cook goes a little bit higher. Wow, Team 10 has had a shocking draft. I'm going to close the draft board here. I need you guys to look at Team 10. They have 6 receivers. Zeke is their running back 1, and James Cook, the split timeshare rookie running back for Buffalo, is their running back 2, with tight end Zach Ertz. man, do not draft like Team 10
No.
or like Team 1 or 3 we saw at the beginning. It's going to turn into a mess. But now back with my choice, and I really have no idea. I have 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs. I'd love to take a running back here. As far as wide receivers go, it'd probably be Elijah Moore if I was to take one. Brandon Ayuk, who still is developing a lot there with San Francisco and finally could have a decent role this season. Chris Olave is, of course, some upside. Same with Treylon Burks as some rookie wide receivers you can go later. But I talked about earlier, I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson. It's who I was targeting since I didn't get Damien Harris earlier. He's still going to have a pass-catching role in a PPR league if I need him as a flex spot. If, my team's in shambles, then they'll be fine to use.
Yeah, and, looking Elijah Moore, wide receiver 1 out of the Jets, even with Zach Wilson, missing everything on the field, but hitting everything off the field, including a lot of players' mothers. Hey, just keep an eye out because that man is funny. Wild. Joe Flacco there is, the over-the-top coach. So I kind of like the fact that you at least have that little bit of seniority that Zach Wilson is, tucked underneath to help see that. Christian Kirk, the most overpaid wide receiver in the NFL.
Yep.
So, yeah, okay. I guess if you want to go for that in round 10, I think there's better places to go than Christian Kirk. But, hey, it's not my team, not my problem. And the more I look at my team, the better I feel about where I'm going. But, again, going back this direction, a lot of running backs already taken, so I'm not going to go there. I already have 4 as well, and I've got enough wide receivers. I'm actually going to look for a tight end in this spot, and this is going to be one that is going to be a player that they just actually cut another one of their tight ends off the roster, so it's literally just the one guy in the backfield. Like, that's it. He is tight end number 1. There's no one else there in that field. Quentin Morris, Tommy Sweeney, I don't even know who they are. I don't even care who they are. Dawson Knox is going to be my guy.
Yeah, and that's another thing about the Buffalo offense is Beasley and Sanders lost a lot of value, but Dawson Knox was like the league-saving tight end for me last year. Yeah, and this I was going to tell you this happens in mock drafts with computers. They love to take second quarterbacks going into later ends of drafts. Obviously not realistic, especially with second tight ends. People are doing that in the later stages, but. Back on the Dawson Knox part, when George Kittle got injured last year, I picked up Dawson Knox off the waivers, and boy, did he save me some weeks. So he is going to do the same thing again this season. Obviously, I already talked about them losing Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. Gabriel Davis gets a huge buff, but so does Dawson Knox. No one's really talking about why Dawson Knox is going to be just as good, too. Dawson Knox is going to be another great receiver who did get targeted a lot in the red zone last season by Josh Allen. And Gabriel Davis will still as well. I mean, he's a huge receiving weapon in the end zone, but Dawson Knox is going to be a great option. As a late tight end, there's not many I like besides like Cole Kmet or David Njoku, like some really late flyers. So I like Dawson Knox here. You still need a quarterback. Who's your pick?
Well, I clicked on.
I can't believe Tom Brady dropped to the 10-10 in this draft, by the way.
If I refresh, does this break it?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I clicked on statistics for a player and the whole screen went blue.
Okay, great.
So I got scared for a second. Yeah, I need a quarterback. You're right. That's what I was looking at. It was quarterback stats. Okay, it worked this time. There's a lot up here, but again, with quarterbacks available and with I know how the AI is going to go, like I'm looking, one of those 3 quarterbacks that just got drafted as quarterback 2 for these 3 clowns, team 1, 2, 3. It's probably one of the quarterbacks I'm looking at. I would happily take any one of those 3, especially if I stack up Dylan and Rodgers. If I throw Matt Stafford onto my roster, I'm more than happy with that. I'm actually not going to draft a quarterback in this round. I'm going to save my quarterback for my Mr. Irrelevant because I just do not care. And the fact that Trey Lance is quarterback 1 as projected, no, thanks, because now they have 2 quarterbacks again, so they have no quarterbacks in San Francisco. So I'm going to look for, let's see my roster. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got all the running backs I want. I got all the receivers I want, I think. This is instead of round 12 being my gambling pick as to what's going to happen, just because I'll have a quarterback there, I'm going to use it for this one. I've already kind of used it once already. So I'm going to take another one looking for upside. And I think that it's going to have to be probably somewhere in the Kansas City offense because I know that they're going to produce. And I think I've already taken one rookie. I'll take another. I'll take Sky Moore on my team.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, they haven't really established a wide receiver one in Kansas City yet. Not saying Sky Moore will be that one, but Sky Moore could still see a lot of action there in Kansas City, so I don't mind that. We go Robert Woods right after, Melvin Gordon following the same. Now back to me. Chris Olave is someone who I was thinking about. I do have Kamara already, of course, like I mentioned, but Chris Olave could be a great pickup at the wide receiver 2 position, especially if Michael Thomas is out for any part of the season. Chris Olave is the wide receiver 1 in the Saints offense. So for me, that is an easy pick there. I'll take him every time. Then goes Gesicki, Trey Lance, Michael Carter, and Chase Claypool. Now my Mr. Irrelevant or upside pick here at the end. I have 5 receivers, 4 running backs. You could go and try and just stack it up, get some running back value. And someone, I don't know what happened here, but Darrell Henderson has dropped insane amounts. And I was wondering where he was in the draft. In Sleeper, his ADP is even lower. Going in the 12th round, that is an easy pick for me right there.
Yeah, and I think part of that's because Cam Akers has come back to the field, so now there's this question mark of what's going on in the Rams' backfield, but Henderson's still going to be able to put something up here. My screen's just not going to load it, so I won't be able to look at what he was able to do, but I cannot blame that. It's the same thing with the handshake. You know, Tony Pollard, Zeke, you got Ramondre Stevenson, and Damien Harris in New England. Like, it's a 1-2 punch out of the Rams' offense, but the Rams' offense is just better than the 2 aforementioned ones, so I do not blame anyone that would draft Henderson, especially get him in the 12th round. That's a great pick. Which leads me to my quarterback and who I want to lead my team. And you know what? We're still reaching here, right? Yeah, Kirk Cousins, great quarterback.
I love Kirk Cousins here.
Done phenomenal things. Has done over 20, 21 points a game. Like, this is a no-brainer to take Kirk Cousins in round 12 as my number 1 quarterback. I'm not going to have to replace him ever, except for on a bye week. That's just the easiest pick anyone could ever make. So I'm going to go with Danny Dimes.
Oh, man. All that talk, he's going, Kirk Cousins, he's great, but Daniel Jones, that's the guy. With Kenny Galladay and an injured Kadarius Toney, that's the guy I want as my QB1. Oh, man. Let us know in the comments in our videos who you think had the better draft. I can easily tell you which one I think it is. It's definitely not the guy with Daniel Jones as a quarterback, but let us know. Of course, this was a wacky draft from the very start. I think the AA was just like, oh, we're gonna mess this up, because obviously I'm gonna keep that in. I was thinking about editing it out, but the beginning was too crazy to have Derrick Henry go 1, and then Jonathan Taylor make it to pick 5. Yeah, we had to change it. So let us know in the comments.
If I got Jonathan Taylor, I'd be so much happier with this.
Like, 5. I'd be fine.
Man. Yeah, I'd be way much better than where I am. I don't think I had a bad draft, all things considered. Danny Dimes is obviously not going to be my quarterback 1.
Of course.
I just got to wrap it up the way that it started. Complete chaos. Like, I'll happily take. And I don't want to take anything away from Daniel Jones. Like, don't get me wrong. He's not a great quarterback.
He's fine.
He's not Kirk Cousins, but he's also going to be able to do okay. You know, his points weren't bad last year. I think he's underrated, but he's not Kirk Cousins.
No, he's not. He's not a starting caliber quarterback. So
once, you heard it twice. Thanks all for watching. I appreciate you. Make sure you leave a comment down below to tell me if you think Danny Dimes is actually QB1 material to start out on your roster. And let me know how you think my backfield's going to do, because I'm not completely sold on what I've got. You know, it's not great. It's not awful. But let me know if you think this is a playoff caliber team, even with Danny Dimes on board. And don't forget, of course, like, subscribe, and we'll see you for the next one.